another episode of SubSecond. I'm Hima Dasani, the Enterprise Manager of Team Nautilus, and joining us today is Mr. Chris. He was the member of Spartan Racing, the team manager of 21 meters per second, 2016 UAE National Champion, 2017 World Finalist, and has been a World Finals judge for almost 3 years now. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Emma. Glad to be here.
Really glad to have you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really great. Yeah, after meeting all of you, I'm doing so much better.
That's so great to hear. Okay, let me just ask you this. Tell us a little about yourselves. How do you become a judge and how has that journey been?
Ooh, okay. So becoming a judge after 2016, we won the national championship. We went to the World Finals in 2017, right? When we came back, I think we started judging the national competitions from then on. Paul invited us once, and then he's never been able to get rid of me. So that works. And then the World Finals, honestly, I just asked. And he said, yeah, we'd love to have you. And so I've been judging ever since. But a little bit about me. I'm the design engineer for the team, was the design engineer for the team. And it was a fun journey. I am now, judging coordinator for the last 2 national championships in the UAE. So that's been fun too. It's really great to see, the flip side of the competition.
Yes, definitely. I mean, we were also judges this year, and you were the chair of judges, and that was an absolutely amazing experience for 2 days.
You guys did a great job.
Oh, thank you so much. I feel like he's being forced to say this because it's been recorded.
Totally not.
Well, yeah, I mean, being a participant in F1 in schools and then going to being a judge, how has that journey been? I mean, that's absolutely insane, that change.
It is. Honestly, it was a little daunting at first because, the first time I sat in the judge's chair and I was like, how do I judge you? What do I say? And honestly, if you were around for the competition, there were a few parts in the competition where people said that I was a harsh judge. So I've had to learn how to dial it back down. 2019, I remember this very specifically. We had judges coming in from all over the world, and a few of them were like, Chris, you're a very harsh grader. I'm like, I don't know. This is just how I do my thing. But it's been a lot of learning, and that's been nice, especially growing closer to a lot of my friends, a lot of my seniors. It's been great because you get to hear so much about the experiences. And I think that's where it truly matters.
Right. Makes sense. And so, yes, you were also a part of 21 meters per second, and you guys were the UAE national champions.
Yeah.
So, in that moment, how did that feeling feel like, oh God, we're going to the World Finals and we're going to be world finalists?
Well, funny story. I wasn't actually there for the 2016 national championship. I was taking part in another competition in Las Vegas, and so my team did most of the competition. I did my verbal presentation through recorded video, and I found out. So it's morning in Dubai, in Abu Dhabi, and it's nighttime in Las Vegas.
Mhm.
So just before I was about to sleep, I hear, "Oh, we're going to the World Finals! Awesome!" And then I go to sleep. So it was a really nice. It was a really nice moment. I know my manufacturing engineer. He cried while receiving the trophy, and it was an emotional moment. It was all of our hard work coming to pass, and then it also meant this next 1 year is going to be more hard work. But we were super excited for it. Out of all the competitions I've ever gone for, I think F1 in schools has been the most exciting.
Agreed. I mean, I remember when we won, just the adrenaline rush. I didn't want to cry, but you just cry because that moment is just so special.
It is.
And yeah, completely agree. But you also said that you were the design engineer and you've been an enterprise judge. Like how did that work?
Okay, so I was the design engineer for the team. I was the team manager for the team, right? So I pretty much know or understand each aspect. I don't know everything, right? But I understand each aspect, and I made sure that everybody in the team understood each part of the competition, each aspect of the competition. And so what ended up happening was my first 2 judging stints, if you would, were in verbal presentation. And then after that, we slowly moved on to enterprise judging and pit display judging and all of that. And it's been nice. I just think me being a team manager is what really helped with that. And just having an understanding of where this competition can actually take you. That's what really helped in that circumstance.
But how did you end up as an enterprise judge? Like, did you sign up
Oh.
for that or?
Sort of. I think I signed up for everything, and they were like, "You take enterprise, just go ahead and do that." But no, yeah, they saw my activities too, and they said, "Hey, okay, so he understands what the competition looks like, so let's put him there."
Right, makes sense. And you've been a judge for really, really long. I can't even count how long has it been. It's been really, really long. We're in 2023. Yeah, I didn't mean to say that you.
I think I've been a judge for about 6-7 years now.
Yeah, that's an insane amount of time. So just as a judge, what are just some basic criteria that might not be in a scorecard, but you just want to see in each and every team?
Okay, honestly, everything's in your scorecard. But more than that, I think it's the confidence is definitely number one. Just being able to come up there and say, hey, it's not about arrogance. Arrogance and confidence are two different things, right? It's about having the confidence to come up there and say, hey, we've done our part, right? And this is what it is, And then it's also about team chemistry. You can always spot a team that's I don't want to say a team that wins, but a team that can make it far just based on their chemistry. How they gel well with others, how they gel within themselves, right? How they give respect to each other. Those are all very important things. So I think it's definitely got to do with confidence. It's got to do with team chemistry. And then the last part is how you approach the competition. Are you doing this out of obligation or are you doing this out of passion? Because passion trumps obligation anytime.
Makes sense. And I've heard a lot of people say this, your scorecard is your Bible. How far do you stand with that theory?
I definitely stand with that theory 100% because at the end of the day, even when it comes to different judging criteria, right? You can do something super great. So, for example, in this year's scorecard, you had sustainability, right? And you can do something really, really good in innovation. But if it isn't sustainable, we can mark you for it, because the scorecard ensures fairness. And if you don't have that fairness, there's no basis to the competition. And so essentially what happens is, hey, I can judge you for sustainability and you can be super great when it comes to innovation, but I can't judge you for that. And if I can't judge you for that, I can't give you marks for that. And if I can't give you marks for that, there's no point to it. So always follow the scorecard.
Makes sense. And just from a judge's point of view, what are some mistakes that you see almost in every team? Because there's so many teams that come and go.
Yeah. Honestly, number one is not following the scorecard. It's always about getting fixated on one aspect of the competition. So for a lot of them, they get fixated on the car, right? Some of them make amazing cars, but they have an engineering portfolio that's barely anything, right? Some of them make amazing team displays, but their verbal presentation is really bad, right? So I think it's about leveling that playing field and saying, hey, okay, we need to focus on everything. Because at the end of the day, if you look at the scorecards or the scoring itself, you get maybe 1/4 of the points go toward racing. Everything else is equally divided. And so you have 3/4 of the points lying in your hand, right? And it's up to you to say, okay, we need to make sure we're equally good in everything. So I think the scorecard is number one, them not following the scorecard. And I think the second one is just not asking the right questions. A team or so many teams can avoid a lot of mistakes if they ask the right questions. And so I guess that's another one.
Very true. I completely agree. As a national finance as well as a world finance judge, what's the difference in the judging procedure?
Absolutely nothing, actually. The judging scorecards are almost the same always, right? Definitely there's a different level of competition when you go to the World Finals. But other than that, the judges themselves moderate. So basically what they do is they moderate your first session, right? And they make sure that everybody understands how judging is supposed to work. They make sure that there's a benchmark, right, that follows every other team. So that way there is no way of having an unfair bias, right? And so I don't know if you all remember this, but even in your in your judging, right, we made sure to avoid unfair biases,
Yes.
right? And so that's very important, and that's something that we do even in the World Finance. We make sure to avoid unfair biases. We make sure to benchmark everything. We make sure to moderate everything, right? And so, except for the level of competition, everything else pretty much stays the same.
Well, that's great to know that, UAE nationals and world fans are judged on the same level. That gives us confidence as well as, helps the UAE teams improve a lot. What is the side of enterprise, as an enterprise judge? Do you think that's ignored or just not given that much importance by teams?
Okay. So enterprise usually comes into PID display and portfolio, right? When it comes to the PID display, again, it's about just follow the scorecard, right? Because there's a lot of options there where you can score good points, but just because you're lacking in content, essentially you're supposed to look at a PID display and understand exactly what they're trying to say. Same goes with portfolios. A lot of people, usually what ends up happening is they have a lot of content, but not enough pictures, right? Or they have a lot of pictures, but not enough content explaining the pictures, right? So it's a good balance between the two where I can look at a portfolio and I can say, hey, they did this, 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 and that's the proof they have for it. And especially when it comes to enterprise, it's always about project evaluation, right? Where you're saying, hey, these are my predicted metrics over a certain period of time. And then these are the ways we evaluated those metrics and said, hey, okay, in 2 months' time, this is what happened to my predictions. And based on that, I'm changing my predictions again, right? Continuous evaluation. So if you can't do that, or if you've not done that in your portfolio, I know there's a good chunk of points for that itself, right? And so it's about reading the scorecard again, making sure you hit every mark, and making sure that your judges know that you've hit every mark. So that means making it clearly visible to them.
Right. I mean, yeah, makes sense. And when we're talking about just project evaluation, is that per page project evaluation or just for like a certain thing in the scorecard?
So you can interpret that however you want to, right? I think for my team, what we did was we had an evaluation at the end of every page. We actually had research and evaluation at the end of every page. But some teams, what they do is they have things like NAT charts, right? Gantt charts, and they have different sorts of workflows and all of that, and then they evaluate that. They say, okay, this is what happened to our Gantt chart, right? This is what our expected deliverables and delivery time was. This is what happened. This is why we're extending that delivery time, or this is why we were able to make it faster, right? And so I think continuous project evaluation can also be done on a grand scale. It can also be done on a small scale. Now, if you're doing it on every page, make sure it's visible, right? Make sure they understand why it's there. Because if not, there's no point of it. If it's lost in a clutter or a sea of words, there's no point.
Okay. I know you judged as an enterprise judge, and you have experience in designing. But when it comes to sustainability, as you were speaking about before, what do you generally look for in sustainability?
All right. Okay, let me ask you this question. What do you think sustainability is? Interviewee never gets to ask the questions. So what do you think sustainability is?
To sustain the resources that we have without, harming it to a greater degree for future generations.
Okay. Do you think it's purely environmental?
No, there are different kinds of sustainability. You could be it could be completely based on the community at the same time, environmentally and industrially.
All right. So you've got social, economic, and environmental sustainability.
Yeah.
Right. And those three sustainability factors is what we look for. Right. And so essentially what happens there is, okay, you did such and such event. How has that affected the community? Right. Or you did such and such sustainability drive. What has that done for the environment? What has that done for the for the socio-economic factors involved, right? The stakeholders involved. So that's where, when we look at sustainability, we look at it in terms of the social impacts, the economic impacts, and the environmental impacts, right? And we say, okay, what is it that you've done as compared to another team? What is it that you've done, and what are the impacts it's had, right? And that's where we prefer and we appreciate when you give us stats. Because everything's a numbers game at the end, right? You can't say, oh yeah, we had a good drive and it was pretty nice and we impacted a lot of people, right? A lot can mean 5 people, a lot can mean 15 people, a lot can mean 1,500 people. Right? And so it entirely depends on what the stats are. So your sustainability factor, right? It depends on, well, there's two ways again. On your pit display, it depends on how your pit display was built, right? That's taken into account sometimes. A lot of the times for World Finals, but when it comes to your verbal presentations, right? You're talking about the different projects you did that were sustainable. And so when you're talking about that, it comes into play when you're talking about those different aspects of sustainability.
Yeah, makes sense. And is it like a common thing looking at teams, taking into account sustainability on the very surface level and not really going deep with sustainability?
Definitely. A lot of teams, like, that's the reason I asked you the question, because a lot of teams think that sustainability just means environmental sustainability, right? And so they talk about, oh yeah, we recycle this, we recycle that. Oh, we did this with the cans, we did this with that. But there's a lot more to it than just that, you know? There's a lot more to sustainability than just environmental sustainability. And even in the scorecard, it's about, hey, have they given us good proof, right? And then the higher bracket talks about socio-economic and environmental sustainability and the proof for them doing it. So even in the scorecard, it's clearly mentioned, it's clearly outlined.
Great.
That's great. As someone who's been involved in F1 in schools project and as a judge and as a participant for like almost a decade.
Now you're making your feeling.
It has
See,
been, man.
it's not me.
Yikes.
But what's your opinion on how the competition has evolved since you graduated?
Okay, so honestly, it's gotten so much bigger, which is awesome, right? You guys have an F1 car just hanging there in the track, right? It's insane. The way the competition has evolved is amazing, and I'm absolutely in love with that. And I'm obsessed over the fact that so many teams end up coming. I think over the last weekend, while you guys were there, we had about 3,000 people come in. And that's including the participants, including the the parents, the teachers, all of that. We had 84 teams for F1 in schools, 100-something teams for Formula Thara, 32 teams for 4x4. So it's really evolved into something really good. And it's really big and really wonderful. And I absolutely love that. I absolutely love how interested students are getting. I actually just went to my old school. Also, I'm sorry if I'm blabbering, but I also just went to my old school just a while back, and they said, yeah, we're actually implementing Formula Tara, and we're going to start that. And they're planning on buying a F1 track. And I'm like, wow, you couldn't do that while we were here? But it's definitely making an impact. And I think that's for the better, because it's taught me so many things that, like, for example, right now with my company and all that, we do a lot of STEM integration, right? And I need to talk to people. If I need to talk to you, I need to have that confidence in knowing what I want to say, right? And a major part of that was through F1 schools, right? Learning how to handle finances, learning how to talk to sponsors, learning how to talk to different people, convince people, learning how to, well, design cars is just a fun thing I like to do, but learning how to do that. All these different aspects came together, culminated inside F1 schools. And so seeing that a lot more students get access to that, that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, F1 schools has become so big. Just compared to last year, I remember we had professional and rookie in the same day because it wasn't a lot.
Yeah.
This time we had to have separate days for each and every event.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's become, even in our school ourselves, again, it's become so big. And yeah, I just say I feel like Nautilus we're good mentors because we have like 2 national champions from us, not to brag.
No, yeah, I saw you all in the video when they announced the winners, and I was like, yeah.
The yes, as international school. It's all Nautilus. No, I'm joking, of course. But oh yeah, also, so you have judged portfolios when there was project management and when there was no project management. So earlier what used to happen is people used to inculcate project management somehow in their enterprise portfolio, but later they had like a proper division. So what's the difference between those two portfolios?
Well, again, when it comes to that, it's about making sure that so project management inside the portfolio, again, a lot of them, what they used to do even before, is they used to keep a separate page for it, and they should be like, oh yeah, this is project management, this is what we do, right? But the really good teams will have it displayed throughout all their elements, right? Throughout the entire portfolio, maybe 10 pages, 8 pages, whatever it is. Throughout their entire portfolio, you've got a certain aspect of project management mentioned everywhere, you know? And so I think the major difference is just that even now, honestly, the teams are still figuring things out, right? Without such great mentors, I don't know how they're doing it. but no, yeah. So the thing is, with those teams, a lot of them, like I said, if they ask the right questions, they can understand what it is. For judges, as long as you're abiding by the scorecard, we understand what we have to do, right? And for judges, what they end up doing is they look at that project management aspect, and it says it says continuous evaluation of your project management elements, right? And so when it's talking about that in the scorecard, you're looking at continuous evaluation. Maybe it's in one page, that's fine. Maybe it's across the entire board, that's fine too, as long as it's evident and it makes sense, right? Because also judges can understand when a lot of it isn't true. When people start making things up, we understand. Right.
So even now, like even though there's a clear cut division, people still have project management in their enterprise portfolios.
Yes. So when it comes to, I think if you're talking about the project management clear cut division, you're talking about is in World Finals, right?
Yeah, World Finals, not
Right.
nationals.
So yeah, for nationals they don't have that. When it comes to World Finals, you still gotta have an element of it in your World Finals portfolio. Because so I'll tell you this, from last year, what happened was we had a few of the World Finals teams. Even though they had a separate page or a separate, folder for project management, right? Just like they have one for marketing and digital strategies, that's what it's called. But even though they had that in their enterprise portfolio, just because there are so many elements they're covering, right? They mention certain aspects of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? In some way or form, there might be a small bubble here, a small bubble there, a small table here, a small table there, that mentioned, oh, we actually did this, right? We expected to finish it now. We got there, we got this. So like certain different aspects of project management, they have to work in those portfolios, even if it's a separate thing. Because the separate document gets judged a little more intensively because it's a smaller document. But when it comes to the enterprise portfolio, we're still looking for it. Even though it might not be in the scorecard as evident as before, we're still looking for it just because it helps us understand how the team works.
Very true. I mean, as the project manager of my team, that gives lots of pressure. But yeah, I wanted to ask this question. So, when we were judging for Formula Tara and the nationals, the displays, like the idea, the innovation that these small kids, they bring, it's really great. But do you think the glamour factor of the pit display often outweighs, the content that they put?
Sorry. So the thing with that is, honestly, as judges, sometimes it's very easy to get weighed away by the glamour of it. For example, we had a few teams come up with some really impressive stuff, but at the same time, even after you had left, we, as lead judges, what we do is we moderate and we say, okay, hey, these teams have good pits, right? But it's only glamorous. There's no content to it, right? There's no substance to it. So we actually make sure that every team gets judged based on fairness, because not all teams have the same resources. A team comes in with a 500 dirham budget, another team comes in with a 10,000 dirham budget, right? And so I think our first team came in with a 2,000 dirham budget, and we raced against people with so much bigger budgets than that. And it's about being fair to the resources that teams have. And when it comes to the pit display, there's a certain scoring just for content. So if your pit display has a lot of pizzazz but no content, we don't worry about that.
Makes sense. I mean, now that you're talking about budget, this happens so often that there are some teams that have all the budget in the world versus teams that are at a bit of a disadvantage, but they're being more resourceful. So does that matter in any way, shape, or form that one team has really, really famous sponsors and they have all the budget?
Well, honestly, if it was up to me, and when judges get together, a lot of them have the same feeling about this, is it's about what the team does with what they have. And I think even during those days during the competition weekend, while Robbie asked me a few things, right? He asked me about these things, and I was like, hey, it's about what you can do with what you have. It's not necessarily about having 100,000 dirham budget, right? Maybe it's about having that 10, 15,000 dirhams and saying, okay, with this, I'm going to make it so efficient and I'm going to make it work, right? And so then what happens is both those teams with those differing budgets are at the same level of competition, right? And at the end of the day, that's all that matters. What are you putting forward? And so I guess when it comes to the judges, it doesn't matter how much you've got, right? It matters what you've done with what you've got.
Right, right. Yeah, makes complete sense because even for Formula Athara, we saw these teams with an amazing bid display. Like they have so much merchandise, but unfortunately they didn't win versus those people with ads that actually like follow the scorecard, but they don't have that much of like a glamorous bid display.
Exactly.
But they're at a higher position, so that makes complete sense. Also, talking about digital media, so there are teams that have great following. They have a lot of followers, all of that. Versus there are teams that don't have a lot of following, but they have great engagement. So, which one do you, as a judge, really prefer looking at?
Prefer. God, give me English. Preferences, right? I was going to say preferred is different, but preferences, they vary, right? You can have judges who think in different ways. But again, that's why moderation is key. That's why we always benchmark our judging. But what ends up happening is what's on the scorecard, right? It looks like on the scorecard, you've got social media marketing, right? Technically, you've just got marketing, but then there's a part of it that says engagement is important.
Yes.
Right? In the marketing scorecard or in the enterprise scorecard, it says marketing and then engagement, right?
Mm-hmm.
High engagement, it says that very specifically. So if it says high engagement, we're looking at engagement, right? You can have 15, 20, 30 followers. You can have 10,000 followers, but are you engaging with them? That's what matters, And so I think engagement always trumps over followers, but also it depends on the level of competition you're in. If you've been at it for 6 months, 10 months, we'd expect you to get more followers. It's not a must-have, but we expect,
Makes sense. Makes complete sense. Yeah, Dhruv, you have a question?
Yeah, sure. How is your experience being the chair of judges at national finals?
Oh,
and when did you get the position?
Chair of judges is actually Matthew Norman, who was the chair of judges. But I'm not the chair of judges. I'm the judging coordinator. Last year I was the vice chair of judges. Right. But again, those moments, we just had, certain moments where they were like, okay, you've got the experience, go ahead and do it. And they trusted me with it. I said, okay, we'll figure it out. But it's been an amazing experience. Again, being able to talk to you all, being able to engage with you all, being able to actually see the competition from a bigger perspective has been definitely more helpful.
Agreed. I mean, like when we came to the competition, we heard of, various world finance teams in the UAE. Like we only heard of 21MS and so on. Like to meet her, it's really nice.
Totally believe that.
21MS.
Totally believe that. Yeah. Uh-huh. Right.
No, actually, you know what? No kidding. 21, just for a second, it's a really famous team within our school also. Yeah. No, I'm not kidding. I'm actually being really serious.
I choose to believe it.
Thank you so much. Let's talk a little about this scorecard. So this year's scorecard says something called as creative ROIs. And teams have to have something called as a creative ROI. What are your thoughts on that?
So when I think of creative ROIs, I think of, hey, you've always got this thing of, okay, I'll give you placement on my shirt, I'll give you placement on my banner, I'll give you placement on the bid display, I'll give you placement on the car, right? But what else can you do other than that? Some teams, what they've done is they've had events, right? Some teams have had social media giveaways. They've had this, they've had that. What can you, in terms of creative ROIs, again, it's only about what you can give with what you have, right? How creative can you be with your marketing? Because a lot of teams will think of different ways to get things done. And that's awesome, right? And that's what we're looking for. And again, everything's being judged based on the teams we have present. We're not judging it based on, oh, this company somewhere there did this. Why couldn't you do that, right? We're not judging them based on an external factor. We're judging them based on, sorry, we're judging them based on the competition factors itself. And so I think when it comes to creative ROI, we're thinking about that. We're thinking about how creative can you get with your marketing to where you, again, I think it ties back to social sustainability as well, right? How creative are you getting with your marketing? How creative are you getting with giving or adding value to your sponsors? And so I remember this one team that said, yeah, we chose small unknown companies because we wanted our sponsors to be known by our name. And so they went on and on about that, but I guess that can be considered creative marketing.
Makes sense. I mean, talking about that, right? I feel so when I'm talking to these little kids just entering the competition, they think that the only ROI that these sponsors have is advertising. And I'm like, no, it's not true. You're little kids. They don't have any advertising through you.
Wow, you'll be surprised. You'd be surprised. The Pomadatara competition is one of our most famous or most looked at competitions,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Especially because of all the parents. And that's some really good marketing there. Especially
Right.
when those kids are very confident. They come up on stage and they're just like, yeah, this is our sponsors. This is what we did. They come up with all that confidence, right? It really does make a difference.
Yes, makes sense. No, it's honestly so nice to see these little kids. They're talking about velocity, they're talking about acceleration when they're 8 years old. And I was like, I was watching Doraemon at an age like that.
Ben 10 for me, Ben 10.
Yeah, Ben 10's also nice. And they're talking about velocity, acceleration, we did sustainability, we carpooled. I was like, where do you get these ideas from? They're so insanely cute. But yeah, makes sense. Also, yeah, talking about marketing. So there's so many teams, right? They have insane amount of marketing, having billboards, etc., whatever. But do judges really look for a reasoning to why you've chosen that certain platform of marketing?
Definitely. If you're looking at marketing, again, it's about what you're doing with the resources that you have, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're looking at your marketing that you're doing with the billboards, or if you're looking at the marketing you're doing with sponsors, however it may be, you're thinking, okay, why did you choose to do this? Because again, it comes back to sustainability, right? It comes back to innovation. It comes back to thinking why we're doing all these things, right? And so that's what really matters. And so at the end of the day, you're looking at a team and saying, oh, we spent thousands of dollars on this. Why? Right? We spent $500 on a billboard. Why? We spent $200 on this. Why? Right? Because if there's no clear reasoning behind it, it's just, hey, you've got a lot of money, you're spending it however you want. Right? Again, ties back into effective use of resources. If you have an effective use of a resource, that can be valued higher. Right? Because the same thing applies at a corporate level. When you're looking at corporate levels or corporate companies, right? I know this for a fact is that you have very little budget sometimes. What you can do with that budget is very important. How you can make that budget work for you is very important.
Very true. I completely agree with that. That levels the competition. Even the people with the most money and even people get the less. Like when we came to Aspen, it's like I said, we met most, seniors and all. So do you think like F1 has like a pull factor which pulls in like, teams that have already graduated, to world finals, went and now are doing jobs and they're still coming back?
The most passionate ones, yes. The seniors you met that day, we were all sitting around and we were discussing. We were like, in 10 years' time, we'll still be here. And we decided on, after F1 in schools, we'll have wheelchair races. That will just be us old guys. We'll just go on our wheelchairs, go on the track, and see how that goes. Because honestly, if you're passionate about it, you'll keep coming back. Like Ashish, Aman, Abdullah, Saish, Nazara, they're all coming back again and again because they're really passionate about the program. They're passionate about helping out with the program. They're passionate about the change it brings, right? Because all of these guys, the guys you were talking to, the seniors, they're all automotive engineers, right? Or they're in some field similar. They're all insanely enthusiastic about F1, right? And on top of that, they love this program to the core. They love what it can do for the children, and they're there for the competition, They're not there for any biases. They don't care where you're from. They don't care what you've done. They care how you're doing in the competition, and they're always there to help you. And that's just amazing, And so the team behind this is the team behind this is actually what makes a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think it makes a difference? Like judges that have been a participant themselves versus judges that are just experienced in the enterprise field?
Yes. That's why if you noticed during most of your judging also, we paired one another, right?
Mhm.
We paired a judge who was experienced with a judge who's a participant, right? Because that way you get the best of both worlds. Because also when it comes to, like, for example, when it comes to marketing things like verbals, or, when it comes to judging things like verbals or marketing or the display, right? You've got judges who are experienced, who know what they're looking for, right? But who are only looking at the scorecard. And then you've got judges who have participation experience, right? Who were competitors in the past, who are looking at the scorecard, but they're also thinking from their own experiences and like, oh, wow, that's nice. That actually takes effort. That's something people haven't thought of, So it's important to have a mix of both. Judges who are just participants sometimes can have biases, and that's why it's important to bring in the corporate factor. But at the same time, yeah, I think a good mix is always good.
Makes sense. Makes sense. I mean, the judge I was paired up with, he was so sweet. I feel like I was just a little rude, just a little bit. But the next day I improved, and yeah, I was being sweet to these teams. Okay, I feel like I've asked a lot of enterprise questions. You were a design engineer. So Dakshin, do you want to ask some questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Well,
With the new deceleration system, I mean, aerodynamics is affected a lot in the car. But how much do you think aerodynamics and the halo affects the overall car performance?
honestly, you're looking at a 0.2 millisecond difference or 0.2 second difference. Sorry. And so essentially what will happen there is your car is relying more on your side pods, your front and back wings, and your diffusers if you have any, right? So your car is relying more on letting in air and taking out air and diverting that air again from your helo or halo. Yeah. Anyways, the point being is, although the car races for barely 2 seconds, barely 1.5 seconds, right? It's important to analyze. I think the majority of your aerodynamics comes into play in your front wing, right? And your side pods, because that's where a lot of your, how do you call it? A lot of your contact, right? A lot of the body that's in contact with the air, right? That's mostly your halo, your side pods, your front wing, right? The back wing, not so much. It's a very thin piece of whatever you make it out of, right? But the cross section is not that big, right? So it's about your diffusers, how you're letting air go out, what the wake of the car is, right? The stability of the car as the air goes out. And then it's about the cross-sectional area just in between the car, which has the most impact on your aerodynamics. So I think it's about streamlining that. Just like every other car that F1 has. If you look at since the competition is becoming more and more like F1, it's important to look at F1 itself, right? So if you look at like Red Bull's bottom plate, right, and the diffuser system they have for that bottom plate, or even for the side pods, the intakes they have for those side pods, right? Those are all important aspects to look at while looking at a car and creating it. I think aerodynamics, it's a huge concept, plays a very vital role in F1 in schools, but at the same time, it's for a 0.2 second difference. So do with it what you will.
Yes, aerodynamics is very important, but so is stability, as you
Definitely.
and consistency and strength of the car to ensure that it doesn't break over the 10 different runs. So
Exactly.
so you guys went for the World Final. So how did you guys ensure your car is strong, consistent, and aerodynamically efficient?
Okay, so we try to be as simple as possible. Well, not as possible, but like as simple as we can be, right? And so we use one of the most overused designs for the loft of the car, the the chamber casing. God, I just did that. Okay, the chamber casing, right? And so that was just a streamlined half a bullet, whatever you want to call it, right? We created basically what I did was I created 3 sketches, I put a loft through it, and we finished with that. Then when it came to the wings, we made sure to use good material. So we used nylon, and we did nylon printing for those wings.
Oh, okay, wait. Also, I love to ask this question, so I'll just ask you this. What's the greatest and the best theme that you've ever come across, both UA and at Worlds?
Okay, I don't remember the teams, unfortunately. The names, because I've gone through like 100 to 300 of them, but like I don't remember the team names. But I can tell you a few teams that have really struck me. Teams that are confident. It's always with that. One is the confidence. Second is the amount of competition they can bring and how well they can present themselves. So for example, even in this year's competition, we had teams that honestly could go to the World Finals just like that. They might not get podium place, but they have a fighting chance, right? And so again, I don't remember the team name specifically, but I'm saying when it comes to things like making sure all the components are given equal importance, right? Or making sure that verbal presentation that you've actually rehearsed it, those kind of things, those small things. That's what makes the big difference for me. So I don't remember the team names, but I know that I've seen quite a few good teams over the past.
Agreed. Agreed. I mean, for me, I feel like at the UA level, Sapphire Racing, really good team.
Yeah.
And
back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day.
Yeah, they were one of the first few teams to bring out, I think, metal wings or metal wheels. But yeah, good team.
Yeah, really good team. Really good team.
All right. What else do we have?
And Dhruv, you were.
I'm chilling. I'm good.
Okay, no, he unmuted.
I'm glad he
Then, yeah, no, he unmuted, and then I was like, I don't want to interrupt. Okay, never mind. Okay, so even this year, when I was going through the portfolios, I saw a few teams. They have so they had stakeholders written, right, and a few of them, each of them varied in their stakeholders. So, what do you think is like the perfect stakeholder criteria that each and every team should include?
Oh, honestly, again, like we said, it varies because there's different interpretations, right? Different people interpret differently. But I guess when it comes to it, you're thinking about who is your project affecting, right? We've learned about stakeholders. So I'm doing my computer engineering and computer science masters, but in those classes, we had this one software engineering class where they spoke about stakeholders. So essentially, it's anyone who comes into contact with your program or with your product, and anyone who's benefited from it, right? Benefiting can be negative, positive. That's a whole different concept, but essentially it's anyone who's come into contact with it. So if I was still doing F1, I would say it's my team, right? It's the participants around me, my sponsors, my audiences, right? If it comes down to Weapon Display, it's anyone who comes to Weapon Display. It's my community around me, right? They're all stakeholders in some sense, right? They again, I know when you think about the literal world of stakeholder, thinking about somebody who has a stake in the project, in the product, but it's not only that, it's anybody who's affected by it, anybody who comes into contact with it, because you're either adding value to them or taking value away from them. So in some sense, you are affecting them. So I think that's a stakeholder.
Right. Do you think judges come under stakeholders?
I was going to say, probably depends on if they interact with you, with your display, with your web presentation, in different ways. So they do come under stakeholders, but I don't think they play as much of a role as, your sponsors. So I think when it comes to judges, they fall under the community category or the audience category, the passerbys.
Yeah, makes sense. Because I've been going on and off, about whether judges are stakeholders or not. Me and Drew were having this debate. And now I won because I was like, no, judges
Thank
are
you.
affected.
Yeah, they definitely are.
But yeah, makes complete sense. But yeah, I guess that's it for this episode for SubSecond. Thank you so much for
Thank you so
joining today. And,
Thank you so much for having me. And honestly, great team. You guys are nice. You guys are fun. And I hope that, wherever you guys go, whatever you guys do, all the best for everything. If you ever need a helping hand somewhere, let me know. But
Thank
I
you.
got
We'll see you next year for the Nationals.
yeah, definitely.
But yeah, thank you so much. And I'll see you guys also next time, 2 weeks after, for the next episode of SubSecond.
Thanks.